being with us for this power talk. Actually, in a very brief manner, I would like to orient you. Of course, you must have followed. Um, this is a policy level initiative of the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, one of the ministries of Government of India, where we have tried to create a platform for independent directors for their interactions, for learning from peers and experts like you, and also their capacity building. We also facilitate them by, connecting with the companies. There are uh, 2000 plus companies who keep on searching our database. We have given an access to them so that whenever they have a board position for independent directors, they could consider. However, the final choice remains with them depending upon the board skills they are looking for from the professionals. So we have a large database of 22,000 professionals, um, and right from the beginning, we have taken an initiative of inviting experts like you, discussing various topics, which does not only orient us towards the new areas, but also helps us learn from your experiences, the practical life experiences, and also sensitizing them towards, the upcoming areas or the shifts or the changes which are taking place in the corporate governance ecosystem. So that's a brief about this. I think we have already 100 plus members who have joined us. Of course, 900 plus have shown their interest. I'm sure many more will follow. So if you allow, can I introduce you with the group?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so much. So dear friends, I would like to welcome you today evening for this talk by Ioana. Ioana, kindly excuse me if I pronounce it. How do you pronounce? Let me first ask this.
Don't worry. It has been pronounced in so many languages that I'm sure the way you will pronounce it will be exquisite.
Okay, okay.
Ioana
So
Botezaru.
I would try to stick to the first name itself. Ioana is an accomplished leader with extensive experience in the field of ESG, CSR, and environmental security. As a head of CSR and ESG practice for Societe Generale, India and Romania, she is responsible for developing and executing the CSR strategy for both the companies, having focus on achieving a level playing field, promoting environmental sustainability, and also integrating ESG principles across the value chain. Before joining this organization, Ioana has worked for Interpol, International Criminal Police Organization. I'm sure you all are aware of, where she implemented and ran global scale programs as the head of strategic development unit of the environmental security program, and has coordinated the countering WEEE illegal trade project, an initiative funded by European Union Commission and formed by consortia of unique diversity and cohesion, including the United Nations University. She has, to her credit, a graduation degree from International Economic Relations, faculty at the Academy of Economic Studies of Bucharest. So I welcome you, Ioana, once again, and over to you for your discourse, please.
Thank you very much. I'm really privileged to be amongst the independent directors today and share my experience. It did sound pompous what you've just mentioned, and while it's true, you don't see all my wrinkles because I'm not here, I'm not there with you, I'm on a different time zone and continent, but yes, I am being told that I look younger than I actually are, so I hope this stays the same in the next 50 years as well. So what I hope to achieve with you today is really to do this a thought-provoking session for you to potentially have some inspiration on what worked for me and what currently works for us in Societe Generale and in Global Solutions Center in India and in Romania, because we are one team, and see if there is anything that you can adapt for a proper sustainability transition of your companies, of your large organization, smaller organization, but effective ones, regardless of their dimension. So yes, I was born in Romania, but I'm fully an international animal. I've started to study in English in Romania. I've done various masters, with the last one being in France in sustainable development. I've done international economic relations, because you've heard Interpol, what she did with Interpol. So I'll take you through this. It's interesting. And I actually started to work in the construction industry in Romania. And why it is important? Because I've inherited this acumen for what means building blocks for sustainability. Because building a house or any construction project really follows similar rules for building anything in life. You start with a robust foundation, and we now know what means a robust foundation after the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria. This surely reminded us of how important it is to do your job right. Sure, there will be natural destruction, but we can prevent that by building resilience and robust foundations. So really, I have dedicated 10 years of my life building the foundations also for the environmental security program, or co-creating the environmental security program at the Interpol headquarters in France, in Lyon. We were a handful of international colleagues, and it was a difficult topic that we started to look at, environmental crime, environmental security. And in a policing framework, which is perceived to be rigid, it wasn't the easiest or the most joyful journeys of our life, but it worked. And really, we had to work with law enforcement representatives around the world to strengthen that cooperation. And I wasn't a law enforcement specialist either, so you see the complexity there of being a young woman at that stage in an area that I was not prepared necessarily for. I was coming from a sustainable development perspective, but we did this task force of international colleagues who were bringing various perceptions to the table. So concretely, what we did there to limit this, or to put a focus on environmental crimes, like wildlife crimes, Asian big cats, and yes, India. You have tigers and you're protecting your tigers, and it's a sense of pride in the world for that as well. But we know that there are more tigers in US zoos than anywhere in the world, which is the way our society has evolved. So rhinoceros, elephant tusks, pangolin scale trade, illegal, unreported and unregulated fisheries, like the overfishing of Patagonian toothfish, for example, in international waters over the quotas, or a forestry crime, as well as transboundary movements of waste that are part of international conventions, and they have to be dealt with in a certain manner. So all of these are enforced at national levels and through a mix of administrative and criminal penalties, but with differences. So what was the priority then, and how it was important in my journey on the path for sustainability career? Really, we supported national authorities to continue to dedicate professional investigative assets to enforce environmental laws. That was the priority. So we've created that network of investigators, of analysts, and organized trainings and law enforcement operations to actually create a visibility around this topic. And it worked. So in the end, my secret was to navigate through this perceived rigid landscape by ignoring what I was. I was coming from an Eastern European countries. I mean, we were staying at the same table with the powerful G20 countries, and I didn't feel like there was a bias there. I just pushed through. I've ignored it. And women, we've had limited access to power for hundreds of years, and it really equipped us as skilled negotiators. We find ways to grow despite limitations and barriers, and it's really a human skill that women master. What I want to do is do you hear me well? Can we continue in this way? Is that okay? Perfect. So with the International Women's Day just 2 days ago, I really want to dedicate this session to them. I hope we have several women in today's meeting, because we have to remind that we have a role from family care to leadership careers, really. But much of these roles that we offer to society, that women offer, are not comprised in GDP, for example. And that's an interesting perspective if you think about it. So take breastfeeding, like as simple as that. We produce something, we produce milk. Those who decide to have children, the other ones have a different roles that they play, that they choose to play. But this is not accounted for financially. So it's interesting how gross domestic product in the world, it's actually being calculated. It doesn't always take in consideration, and it would be difficult, the support we give to each other, from breastfeeding to services we do to our community that do not have this accountability or visibility. So during the pandemic, I left Interpol. I moved back to Romania. I wanted to be close to my family in Romania, and took a new role with Societe Generale Global Solutions Center. So kept that French connection, physically from Romania, but on CSR and now on ESG contribution for both our companies in India and in Romania. It's an interesting landscape and framework, management framework we have. I'm actually part of a triptych leadership, because GSC Global Solutions Center in India has leadership oversight over Romania and obviously India. So the CEO in India is our CEO, even though we have a CEO in Romania as well. And together with the CSR sponsor from India and the person in charge with the capabilities, we advance the CSR and ESG topics. So it's kind of a strong framework there. I'm not alone. And beside the fact that I'm not alone, there are various department heads who also advance CSR and ESG elements in their delivery. So we focus on environmental considerations, governance, but very much also on our people, their diversity, inclusion, now also equity, and I'll mention this a bit later. And we also maintained our traditional sponsorship and our citizenship program through our communication department, because our comms is generally responsible to make that connection with the civil society. So it's our gateway for partnerships. So just a little bit on Societe Generale Group, because, okay, we are shared service center for a financial institution, but what is this financial institution all about? It's really, it has financing, advisory, financing, investing, and advisory business. three main elements, and we are one of the largest entities within the EU, and it's also going through a fast-paced transformation. Let me mention three elements and three large changes that we are going through now and why this is important for us. There was a recent acquisition by our mobility business called ALD of a Dutch lease plan company specialized in leasing and fleet management. The deal actually was committed also to a robust decarbonization plan of the shared fleets. Phased approach, but still important to mention because Societe Generale will have this influence in the mobility sector, which is one of the most polluting sectors in the world. So we, mindful of that, the roadmap is pretty clear on the path to decarbonize. The second aspect is the second large transformation or happening this couple of years is related to a joint venture with Alliance Bernstein, which is a US-based equity research firm, which offers really a seamless cash, equity, and investment solution business. So that's more of the investment side of things. That's the financial kind of universe. And also the creation of Societe Generale French retail network between two existing retail network banks in France, which were part of Societe Generale, called Societe Generale and Crédit du Nord. I'm not going to get into that, but why is it important is that it actually helps the group to mutualize the resources to support these banks functioning. So our companies, Societe Generale Global Solution Center in India and in Romania, contribute with services to all these changes. We really hold genetic information for what is more traditional, but also what is new in the group. And this is such a powerful position to be in. They don't know yet how much power we have, and I'm sure that many of the shared services in India also feel the same when they are thinking about their mothership groups. So really, in terms of recognition, Societe Generale, because I have to establish the credibility. I cannot talk to you about corporate social responsibility and ESG if we are not on a path to actually being recognized that we are in this space. So we are increasingly seen as delivering to our commitments, against our commitments, for a culture of responsibility. And really, for example, you know, the MSCI ratings, I would expect. So we've just had our position confirmed on AAA, which means from MSCI, which means that we are part of top 5% of 191 banks worldwide. So there is recognition that supports our efforts so far in this, our group's efforts so far in this domain. Also, the group was ranked second position by an NGO called Share Action. And it's important because NGOs are generally critical, and it's good to be critical. It's a healthy environment in which they nudge if you're like going differently than what you have committed to do. So also there was an award from Ford Best Investment Bank for Sustainable Finance last year by the Global Finance magazine. And that's another reason for us to say that we are on track. So why they have, or we have attracted the attention and have been receiving this recognition is because we have established a roadmap for gradual exits from fossil fuel projects. We still fund such polluting projects. It's true, we know that. It's we accept that, and a transition does not happen overnight. this is financially painful. And not just for those who make a lot of money, but also for those who depend. Their survival depends on that, based on the fact that they are working in these industries. But we recognize the need to accelerate, given the growing risk that we may not be able to limit global warming to up to maximum 1.5 degrees Celsius. No, this is what the Paris Agreement says. So the global community. You know, we are at 1.3 degrees Celsius warming, and we all feel the effects of that, of what that warming means. So what the group does is to help to advise its clients on how to adapt business models so that our clients are moving on a journey to a more of a decarbonized economic model. That means also training our staff. So we as GSC, Global Solutions Center, in India and Romania, we really power our entities with a catalog of services, and it spans from IT for wholesale and retail business, to finance and accounting, to human resources services, know your customer, screening, compliance, really engaging in transformations and optimizations, and doing design thinking. That super interesting to participate in such events, to really identify what doesn't work, what the needs are, parallel thinking process, not the usual one, because our brains work by following the usual paths that you are creating every day in your decision-making process. So really adopting this parallel thinking to push for innovation. And our companies in India and in Romania already have a track record of 20 years in Bangalore and Chennai, since we opened there, and 10 years in Romania. So India holds this institutional knowledge around these topics that is invaluable, and very, very accelerative in that sense. Now, my current role, I've mentioned to you, but basically, you know, if I would, and it's important for you to know when you will appoint your CSR heads, or if you want to be a CSR head at some point in your, or however you want to consider it. What's important to know is that, and it's a decision that we've taken, it was to not to have a dedicated CSR team. There is a role that represents the topic, and it's my role currently, but this is a mindset that transpires through our existing work and departments. And if we would have had a separate, full-blown CSR department, it would have compartmentalized and increased the capacity for CSR roadmap and implementation, and probably would have experienced a sluggish move of things, because people need to feel like they're in charge, that it's their babies that they are growing, especially in the area of CSR. So I would recommend that a key leadership role that receives support from all your departments can be an interesting recipe. So in my experience, I have identified a master key that has 3 dimensions for CSR implementation. But first you have to understand why people do what they do. They need to feel like they're loved. They need to feel like they have visibility, and they need to go through nice experiences. It's as simple as that. So first, love, yes? Practice really genuine care. Show a loving approach towards how your people evolve professionally. And let me give you a practical example. You have an internal mobility program. Make it about each colleague's career, and for a healthy diversification of activity, because it helps with the neuroflexibility and neuroplasticity. and not about your delivery targets. Really, they don't care about the delivery targets. They care to know that they have a growing path, that people care about them, that they are loved, that they are cared for. And your managers have a lot to play there. They need to learn how to love their people. I know it sounds basic. It's not. It's difficult for us to love people because we all have this tendency to push forward, to put our names there, to impose our ideas on others. Let them feel that they are loved. Understand their need for visibility. That's a very tricky one because we project our consciousness externally to believe that our names will be remembered. Yes, it is a vain thing to do. I know we are vain beings, but we do good or harm so that our names are known today and remembered tomorrow. Imagine that. So we need to have that visibility. Each of us, I know it's difficult, but for various topics they can be given the visibility. You don't need to have their hierarchy speaking about what that person did in the area of CSR. I will say something, let the small one, not the small one, the most junior one, to mention if he or she did something. Give them that visibility. It will empower them. They will have the ability to dream for higher positions. Generate unique experiences, because really as mortals there is a problem. We actually care about our experiences now, our comfort now, and to have joyful exploration done in a friendly manner with our colleagues. So this is also an interesting aspect, and this can be linked with the opportunities you give them for volunteering to engage with external communities. I'll come back to that as well. So understanding these gimmicks, the need to feel loved and cared for, of visibility, and to for people to go through nice experiences should be in your minds when you are designing your CSR strategy. But what is CSR in one sentence? Okay, corporate social responsibility. It's like this magical thing or ESG. What is that? The acronym, environmental, social, and governance indicators. Let me just translate it. It's progress without sufferance. Simple as that. Because it's creating value without harming, without negative externalities, without harming the environment, and considering your stakeholders. And first and foremost, your stakeholders are not priority. Stakeholders are not your clients. Your stakeholders are your people, the ones who will make your clients feel good or have some service, good service used, or a product that is being consumed. But the ones who do that should be your tier one priority. There is a problem because today we do make profits without paying for the environmental destruction we create. And what is really absurd is that we continue. Personally, I continue. Sometimes it happens that I buy things that is wrapped up in plastic, and now we have in India, you have legislation to phase out, to have a progressive exit from plastics. European Commission has that as well, and sometimes it's so insidious that you really get to buy something like that which you don't want. But make it an intentional decision. It's toxic for everyone, but think it in this way. The plastic is one aspect, but our generational priority is CO2 emissions, because we have only 9 years left with this progression of emissions for us to do something about it, to change, because after 9 years we would have finished our budget for CO2 emissions that would enable us to stay within the 1.5 limit. I hope I made myself understood. So if companies would start to pay for the pollution generated, say $50 US or euros per ton of CO2, that could be invested in decarbonized technology, know that many countries would not be profitable anymore. So no one accounts for the destruction. Because the E in the ESG, it's about environmental destruction. The S and G are about policies, how to better integrate, be transparent, have good governance. But in the E element, the indicators are steered around and should be focused on the environmental destruction, and that can be reversible. So it needs to have a different approach. So imagine this. Just in 50 years ago, in the 1970s, there was this American economist, I'm sure you've heard about it, Milton Friedman, but let's remind ourselves what he said. He was against the inclusion of 3 representatives from the public interest, the civil society stakeholders, in the board for General Electric. So his perception, and I will quote him now, was that this would preach a pure and adulterated socialism. He wrote an essay, The Social Responsibility of Business is to Increase Its Profits, and he won the Nobel Prize soon after. This was the atmosphere then. It was, today we have a different mindset. We say, wow, that was, how did we allow, was that an evolutionary milestone? We've generated a revolution, really. The world agreed to an inclusive economy where everybody has to gain from the technology advancement, so that we leave no one behind, with the Brundtland report a long way back, but also in Paris in 2015. And the need to an economy that's not destructive on the environment, but it's really difficult to achieve this. You see where we are, 2015, soon in 2 years, 10 years from then, often we see that we remain at declarative levels. I can just remind the war next door we have in Romania, but okay, that's a different story. So probably the reason for this low advancement is the fact that everybody waits for somebody else to trigger it. So we have regulatory requirements, and you have the Indian Corporate Act for that, but how about embedding CSR into all your activity? Don't even think yet about external vulnerable communities. Apply it to yourself first. Sure, regulatory wise, you will have to support external communities as well. So the solution would be for all of us to be educated as sustainability leaders, and for you to give this power to your employees, because it should be democratic. Otherwise, it feels imposed, unnatural, and annoying, and just a few of good minds would be able to do this work and consider ESG and CSR practices. So in GSEs, we have 4 strategic elements that are articulated on the groups. Let me share now. I can share a bit something. I think this is. Do you do you see my PowerPoint?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, so do you see anything else beside my PowerPoint?
Nothing. It's coming fine. You can make it full screen.
Yeah, I would not know, but it's written big. I would if we can stick like that, that's okay, because you will read. I will do it when.
It is fine. You can continue.
Okay, so really, so the group has 4 axes: people, experience, environment, ESG practice, but from a responsible employer, culture of responsibility, energy transition, and local impact. This is Société Générale focus. Now, we have articulated it like that. For people, level playing field, volunteering in terms of experiences, One Planet, One Home, and ESG practices, ESG practice in terms of our capabilities. So we look at our people following this achieve a level playing field through diversity and inclusion, and soon to comprise equity, which means really to adapt your approach to the individual needs of your people. But don't obsess with targets, with D&I. At least not the 50-50 type hype. It's crazy. You won't get there. What you can do is to have this 30% threshold of representation of the other gender. Funny enough, in India we have for women, in Romania we have for men, because there are teams where we have 90% women in the teams. So that's why we have to be careful not to go over the board with this female representation or 50-50. It's not healthy. You know what's your long-term success factor for integration of women in your entire hierarchical chain? Because this is the problem that India is dealing with. You see that women are dropping off the ladder before they are even able to be promoted, or before being able to accede to higher positions, even though they have followed the same school as men counterparts. They have other roles to do at home. So you know what you can do is really integrate proper maternity and paternity leaves, because the paternity leaves also support women. In fact, they take the weight from their shoulders, and this is a basic rule for engagement with women and the greatest differentiator. And really think of creating kid zones around your offices, or in your offices, or partnerships with other like areas, like entities that can help you with child support. But go for kids up to 10 years old, not only to 3 or 4. Children cannot stay on their own at home, for example. So that's also important. Be intentional about your level playing field, for example, in establishing criteria for pricing or recognition. Make it as inclusive as possible. So I'll give you an example. We've done we were looking at a digital cleanup activity, and we framed it in such a way that all participants, all our staff, are able to participate and to win a prize if they do the right effort. Because some people can do more cleanup than the others due to their work profiles, but we framed it in such a way that helps an ethical concurrential practice. Make sure you review your HR policy for diversity, persons with disabilities and LGBTQ+. That's common sense. What's not yet, probably if you have not yet thought about it, beside physically adapting your companies, you can also consider the spectrum for neurodivergent people, for example, on autistic spectrum or Tourette syndrome, or train your managers on how to deal with this type of disorder, so that they are well equipped when they will have such cases. Try to do that. And very important, another extremely attractive element, be really flexible with your time, be revolutionary. Sure, the pandemic showed us that we can work from home, but make it a sacred element. Allow for extreme flexibility, because we run errands during the day. We need to do things in order to ensure that our lives are well administered, and we will do that in the work. And whether you want it or not, we will do that. We will find the ways to do that. So try to give extreme flexibility, because in this way, if their lives are well administered, then administered, they will give more to the professional task than you would think. They will give more than if you would make it a very rigid time frame schedule for work. And also for our people, we strive to create experiences by and we have introduced since a year, 1 day per year to volunteer as a bank of hours. So for example, if I want to do something for children education or to plant a tree, actually the company pays for that day for me to do it, and I will do it based on the relationship or on the partnerships that we have built with NGOs. So let me give you a quick example. Really, in 2016, we have, since then, we have been collaborating with Vidya, Integrated Development for Youth and Adults. So I only give 2 NGO examples. I know you know more than me. You already have partnerships with them. I do not want to tell you that these are the best. I'm just giving 2 examples that are connected to women empowerment because this week is important for women. So Vidya, we focus on education, livelihood creation, women empowerment. We have this program called Shakti Livelihood, and it's really aimed at providing vocational training for these women. And also digital literacy for children, youth as well. And a different we are supporting is Children of India Foundation, onboarded this year, really with a focus to provide educational support on Devadasi community, where I understood it's not me who deals with these partnerships directly. We have teams who do that with my colleagues in India. But we understood that there was a track record of sexual exploitation in this community. So it's important to bring modern education in support to existing governmental efforts there to equip those children with the best skills they have for their future, knowing that they have gone through some problems. So through really bad problems, not some problems. Sorry for what I've said. Sure, sponsorship is a global practice. We also do support rugby. I know rugby is not interesting for you. I know you are very much in love with cricket. We are in love in Romania with soccer. So, but rugby is also a sport that we support. Société Générale cares for in Paris. So we extended this support for alternative livelihoods for people from vulnerable communities. And under sponsorship, we've done something else that I want to mention, very important. So we support the environment. We've rejuvenated a lake called Nalurali in Bangalore, close to our offices. Why is this important? And I would hope to see more of these projects. India is prone to flooding risk. And in the Bangalore area, we have in Bangalore and Chennai office, but in Bangalore area, there have been some flooding issues recently. So healthy lakes that have a really ecosystem that has been cared for function as sponges. So when the water comes in a great quantity, that lake is able to absorb and really to reduce the flooding risk in the urban area. So it's something that beyond offering livelihoods to local fishermen, you actually have a greater impact for an aspect that is related to India's policy. So did you know actually that today there are rivers and lakes in the world which have same legal rights as humans, and citizens or communities can sue on behalf of the elements of ecosystems such as the lake? That's brilliant. It's really bringing environmental protection to where it should be. And we also do things for our own environmental account. And I need to mention this. So GSC India, Global Solution Center India, has been recognized by Mothership Société Générale and has been awarded for its projects on decarbonization of its hardware and software, but more the hardware practice. So we have been experimenting with temperature in our databases. We have been revisiting and modernizing some of our equipments, which put less pressure on the electricity grid of India, which is important. And we have a digital cleanup practice annually in March. So beyond our energy consumption, we also launched this campaign of Beat the Pollution, and it's very interesting how pollution means really to look at all your supply chain. So we've looked at, for example, responsible sourcing and ensure that we limit the intake of any plastic single-use plastic packaging and products that are useless and that are only generating more waste that end up on our eighth continent. By the way, I'm sure you know about this, which is in the Pacific Ocean, and it's a mess of microplastics. 90% of that is microplastic. So it's really about looking at that and looking also in our downstream. What do we do? So also, for example, from a travel perspective, we limit our travel, our business travel. I came in 3 years, I came only once in India for the purpose of meeting colleagues, and only once in Paris. Surely I visited India and Paris and France before due to my previous work engagement. But now I took a decision to see my colleagues, but to see them once in 3 years. That's something, you know, I would like to continue. And to take the train next time I'm going back to India between Bangalore and Chennai. It's pretty fancy. I like your trains. So our differentiator in the end, it's really a business model based on service offering to the group. We deliver IT, operations, research, and why is it important for ESG and why is it a differentiator for us? Because ESG is like for banks and financial institutions, they must build on top of their financial knowledge on clients and on the deals they do and the reporting they need to do. They need to build a new level of information, a new universe of information that they have to extract, to collect, to analyze, to understand, to make decisions, and to report on. It's an entire supply chain for data on ESG that has come just in the past years, and it's huge because banks traditionally have not been built to account for such information. Sure, we're doing screening, ethical aspects, we are not engaged in various topics, but in particular, we are now having to step up this game. So this was what I wanted to say about what we do, but it's really another important element the group has introduced, and what you may also use, objectives for leadership on ESG. So rather than just don't impose it to everyone, impose it to yourselves, as directors and your immediate peers, that will orbit around ESG specific elements that you are confident you can deliver on. And also do a massive training of CSR and ESG topics. Let me show you the type of training we have in GS, in Societe Generale. To annotate the shared content. I don't know what I received here. Okay. If you see it, I'll make it a bit bigger. There are so many things that you can drill into in terms of CSR and ESG that we have to bring closer to people. Sometimes people don't have time. They are connected and obliged to their delivery objectives. Give them time to do that. We do No Meeting Friday every last Friday of the month. Just do your regulatory training, do your CSR and ESG training, have time to think about your work, what you can do to improve your bottom line that also is related to value creation. And also we are organizing a CSR month every June, during which we also celebrate CSR and do activities in this from this area. So, you know, one thing that I'm looking at, which is very useful and you may want to look at also, is this white paper that was done by the Big Four, called, I don't remember how it is called, but it was done by Big Four in collaboration with World Economic Forum. They have secured various indicators for planet, people, governance, and also for prosperity, they were saying. So just to briefly mention, CO2 equivalent emissions, there is nothing more important that you can report on and consider how to decarbonize. These 10 years, this decade, so the decisions that you make in this decade will actually count for thousands of years to come. If you understand the power you have there to actually be that generation that prevented a catastrophe, you are well within your positions. Nature loss and land use, key biodiversity indicators, and also water consumption. Look, the water withdrawn and the strategy to allow aquifers to replenish is very important. It actually limits the risk of desertification. I invite you to visit the aqueduct tool from World Resource Institute. It's called Water Risk Atlas. Just see how India compares with the world in terms of water security and risk, and you will know what you will want to do with your sponsorship funds. It's to support the national national policy with regards to climate mitigation and extreme weather patterns. People, sure, diversity, equity, inclusion, wage level, risk for incidents, sure, this is common sense, safety and security, training and internal mobility, and attrition, it's a key indicator. Governance, company's purpose, is it valuable? You will always have to think about the value that your companies bring to society. The governing body, ethical behavior of the company, risk and opportunity, and some other interesting elements they are mentioning is like economic contribution, you know, how you've distributed, how it was distributed. Financial assistance received from government as well. That's another interesting topic, knowing that we are today welcomed by Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Looking at investments and nature solutions, there should be no new investment that does not have this element of nature-based solution. You either work with the environment or you destroy the environment, or at least do no harm, and that's something that the EU Commission has as concept, do no harm in the EU taxonomy. Total tax paid and by category. Many companies don't want to disclose that. In Romania, at least, this is a requirement. It should be transparent. You can check every company how much tax is paid, and that's the first thing that you do before doing a full-blown CSR strategy. Because if you do not pay the tax to support the government with the services they need to offer, then it's a difficult conversation to have for CSR afterwards. And also sponsorship support and expenses on R&D, that's important. Just to quickly, I want to finish in a very positive outlook. Look, India benefits from a naturally wealthy subcontinent. You have the most populous country in the world. That means that you have 1 million people joining India's workforce every month. In Romania or in France or in Italy or in Japan, or it's like, you know, it's an old society, to say the least. You have the world's 7th largest economy and aim to hit 5 trillion USD economy by 2024. And you have this year G20 presidency. And you know what? It's amazing that India plays the role of a referee this period, bringing some balance to the discourses that we have and really keeping global security in check. It's a brilliant position to be in, and it's a that responsibilizes you, that makes you really one of the most powerful players today. Because when people fight and you have that calm-headed, level-headed country that says, hey, we are either going to peril or you just figure your problems. So really, just last week, Prime Minister Narendra Modi called on countries to find common ground on divisive issues, highlighting the global governance has failed, and it's true, and that multilateralism is in crisis. So really, India needs, the world needs countries like India to keep that resilience and clear mind about these years to come. What you can do as CEOs, so from a business perspective and C-suite, leaders for your people, embed sustainability in everybody's role. We are all sustainability leaders. Let me put it like that: the person who cleans should know is a sustainability leader in his or her own way, because he or she needs to know how to collect waste separately per fractions, and she or he needs to advise that. So how am I a better sustainability leader than him or she? It's very important at all our levels to be sustainability leaders and to be given that visibility to share. So remember, love, visibility, and experience. These are the things that people live for. And have this new mindset. Really, the real force multiplier I see for India is or resides in how sustainable the services you're offering to the world are. And how you embed e-accessibility in your digital framework, and how you ensure that algorithms are built up in an inclusive way, in an ethical manner. How you ensure that you reduce the processing need for an application so that it consumes less energy, so that you are mindful of the virtual space that you go to cloud. The virtual space also takes a toll on energy emissions and carbon emissions, on energy use. So yes, you excel in this topic. So far, technology has answered all questions we have asked. All questions. We went everywhere, yes, outside of our planet. So let's ask sustainability-driven questions when we create technology. And as IT is a modern human activity, let's make it worth of this status. And CSR in the end really requires leadership without ego. And I would want to finish here. Maybe let's have a conversation about it. I hope that I've taken you through some of my experience. If you're not happy, I'm happy that I was with you. So I hope you're happy as well. I don't know what
Thank you, Joanna, for this effective talk. Now, may I invite Dr. Neeraj, the Nodal Officer, for the question and answer, please. Sir, can you hear me?
That's okay. So what worked for you? If you feel like what I've mentioned is valuable.
Okay. Can we have the questions from the participants? You can raise your hand. I'll unmute you, and then you can directly ask the question to the speaker, please.
I have not exhausted all the CSR topics. I hope there will be a question or two.
We have a participant, Madam Gargi Oja. She want to ask a question. Madam, you kindly unmute yourself and you can ask your question, please.
Please unmute yourself, Gargi.
Yes.
There is a button to unmute. Manoj, can you help her? Yeah. Now please shoot your question.
Yeah, I'm audible now, I hope, right?
Perfect.
Yes. I have a question here. This is pertaining to, of course, the CSR, because that is my area of work also. I'd like to know, in a current situation, you see, a certain percentage of the profit of the company goes to CSR, right? Now, do you think there's going to be any change globally, in global perspective, that because the economy is has slowed down, or there is any problem?
Yes, that would be what a wonderful moment would be when that percentage will be increased, because there is a lot of money in this world. How to best channel it, it's something that we can only rely on governmental policy creation, and obviously with prior consultation with the business sector. Sure, we should better distribute the money that exists in the world for these purposes. I am absolutely with you on this. I just want to remind the fact that we need to introduce carbon taxation or a carbon market that is a globally accepted and approved, because we continue, as I was mentioning in my input, we continue to make profits by emitting carbon dioxide equivalent, like methane and nitrous oxides and all other greenhouse gases. We should stop doing that, reduce that with priority. So if we can tax the polluting technology so that, and at the same time help them to decarbonize their portfolio, their business model, to have energy that's cleaner, then it would be important. Because if you think about it, we can continue to support the social sphere, and if we don't sort our problem with the environment, there will not be a social sphere. There will be so much social turmoil, and there will be so much sufferance that you have to put things into, you have to think to see the big picture of how important environmental destruction limitation is right now, is today. So yes, I would go the sponsorship thing. It's definitely an area in which we can continue to expand, to accelerate, to improve, to get companies to support more the disadvantaged communities. That can be done. What it can in an more economically feasible way is to tax that pollution. That's something that if we cannot manage that and make that more productive, then what can we do? Yes, and let me make a parenthesis. For example, let's say we all move from cars with internal combustion engines to electric cars, electric vehicles. This is not possible for sustainable development, because if we are hooked on petrol, on oil, which is our cocaine now, we would leave that to be hooked on rare minerals and on resources that are in large part in countries such as China, for example. So we will be hooked on something else, and also the capability for us to produce the same number of cars that are electric or to do the retrofitting would be enormous. So a sustainable development concept is to actually work on shared mobility. Get out of the internal combustion engines, get onto the electric vehicles, shared mobility, because a car is used 10% of its time, and my car is used just like for 2 hours per day. If that would be shared with others when they need it, and not just my car, it doesn't need to be my car, we should refocus our economic model and our mobility in such a way that existing resources benefit more people so that we reduce pollution overall. But the ideas are there. How we implement it, it's something that it's really within us, with you as independent directors, governments such as our organizers today, and banks as well, who could support this change.
Next question, please. I can see Mr. Ashwini Sood. Manoj, can you unmute him?
Yes, I'll do so. Sir, kindly unmute yourself, Mr. Aswani Sood.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah,
Yes.
Perfect. So first of all, thank you, Anna, for giving a very wonderful session. Um, uh, I mean, we have all been somewhere associated with this particular topic, but one of the challenges we as world, I would say, face is how to accelerate these topics, because we all know this has to be done, as you were just saying. Let us, even if we go to electric vehicles, it will not be sufficient enough. But I think it's more about the awareness in general, for each and everybody to contribute into this, whether it is corporate or individuals. So what is your idea how it can be accelerated? Is it the policies, is it awareness, or is it commitments? I mean, what is that which you think can bring a rapid accelerated change in the world?
Yes, you've seen that we generally move when we are obliged to move.
Yes.
So policies, the role of governments is critical. It's essential. Without that, because we see it in at the EU level, in Romania, for example, on any other topic, the fact that we have to align with what the EU says, it's like it's pissing our politicians off, but it's so good for the community, for the society. So I think that's important, and I'm talking about EU, okay. But India in its own right, you are subcontinent, and you are also a role model in your region. So you have that. You're like an EU commission, the Indian regional representation. I think the policies need to be accelerated, but there is a sensitivity there, because often I'll say that. I know I'll say that. This is why I am in my role today, because I say things without hiding. Because of short cycles, political cycles, and the fact that politicians want to sing the song of their voters, it's painful when you go through this transition. So it has to involve the people. They have to feel like it's comfortable for them to go through this, and it's not comfortable. So it's like we are in a synthetic equilibrium in which, okay, we move slowly, we move, okay, a little bit, but as long as we have dedicated politicians to make this transition happen, I think that we are on the right track. We have evolved. I've just mentioned, just 50 years ago, we were like really far behind. We are better today. Companies are now required to disclose information. There is this legislation in Europe. It used to be non-financial reporting disclosure. Now it's going to be CSR disclosure, which is going to be way more stringent. It has to be accounted for, because before we were writing stories about the beautiful things we do in CSR, and now look, we need comparable information. You have to make sure you mention what society cares in terms of risk, how you impact the climate, not just how the climate impacts you. So double materiality. But we only started to do that because we were imposed to do that. So yes, the leadership today has not been more important. And you in the corporate framework, you have this power. You know, our names will stay if we make this work, if we embed it, if we really position our companies as sustainability driven companies, data, AI, IT. Yes, sustainability. There is no evolution, no progress without sustainability. I really don't know why we don't call it sustainable IT whenever we put our objectives now, even in our companies, but I'll manage that later.
Thank you, Anna.
Yeah, I can see Mr. S.K. Pandey. Manoj, can you help us? Mr. Pandey, can you come in, please? You'll have to unmute yourself, sir, please.
I think he is not there. Can we request Mr. Subramaniam?
Yeah.
Mr. Subramanian Vedya, can you unmute yourself? Please.
Yeah.
Sir.
Good evening, Neeraj ji, as well as Yona madam. It was a very comprehensive talk regarding the CSR activities. Well, I would like to know, with the pandemic that was there in 2020 and 2021 and prolonging to 2022, what is the CSR amount that has been lost in the entire world, and how is it progressively increasing this year?
I don't think I got the question. How the amount that was lost due to the pandemic?
Yes.
Worldwide, in terms of how
Worldwide.
much it cost our society?
Yes.
Billions, I would think, in terms of health, and how can you account for a person's life? I mean, that can, you see?
No, I am talking about the money that was received by the government in terms of CSR activities spent by the company. 2020, 21, 21, 22.
I would rely on our colleagues from the institute to highlight if they have
Your Honor, let me come in.
Yeah.
Mr. Subramaniam, actually, it's interesting question, I must say, but like during the COVID times, I understand because the business continuity was lost and the profits, making profits for the companies, even continuity was a challenge. So no question
Yes.
of having
Yes, sir.
profits. So no such exercise so far, to my knowledge, has taken place as to how much has left. But one thing which I would like to share, of course, I understand the plight of your question. You want to ask how much money has been lost because that might have negatively impacted the society of continuity of the CSR activities on the part of companies. But one thing which I can say, like there are thousands of and thousands of companies who having CSR budget or not even having CSR budget have really come forward in helping the public systems. I mean to say the government in facing and handling the challenges of this pandemic by helping people on health fields. And because we are based in Gurgaon, so I can say there are so many infrastructure development companies, there are so many FMCG companies, multinational companies who came forward establishing temporary setups for hospitals, oxygens and all. So I think what I believe we should not I don't know what exactly is the objective of the question, but we should not just focus on what we have in terms of amount, but we should focus on the spirit that we have gained, that even after having the enactment in place that if you are making profit, you are obliged to spend money. There were companies who were parting with their funds even when they were, they were finding tallies of reducing recoveries of, receivables or profits, and spite of that spending good amount of money on their part. So that has really transformed the social fabric or the CSR fabric of the nation. I'm talking with reference to India, of course, not Romania. Ioana has better experience on Romania, how companies have came forward. But that's a positive sign, and I think that's one thing which has added to the core spirit of CSR, because so long as we stick to the regulations. I was listening to Ashwini's question also, which was again a very, very interesting question. And I was just trying to stop myself somehow responding to it because Joanna was responding. I will add a couple of points from my side, but that was the fundamental spirit in 2013 by which the CSR enactments have came into picture. But this time it was a real opportunity for the corporates to play the game, and they have played it well. I'm making it as a generic statement, but largely companies have done wonderful during the pandemic time. So I think that has left us with the leeway of ignoring what has been lost as far as the amount is concerned, but to focus and spotlight more on what has been gained. So my
Neeraj, I
take on
think,
it.
Neeraj, you are very right. Why I asked you this question is because earlier the CSR was not taken very seriously, but after the, and plus the impact that it created by the corporates who started even helping the laborers. My own
Absolutely.
company spent a lot of money on the labor area and the families and all that. Has it gone up in terms of this year, particularly 2021, 22, 23? Because that should have helped, as according
See,
to
that
you.
statistics I can share, not exactly the numbers, but I'll share with you the trend. As far as the number of companies are concerned post pandemic, if I refer to the data which you can also see on csr.gov.in. So, in terms of number of companies, the companies have reduced who are, earmarking CSR funds, because we have lost a lot of business houses, or we have lost, in terms of their scale during this period. But as far as the accumulated funding is concerned, that has gone up. So that is one positive, sign. And one thing which again I would like to add, it has really jolted the companies from deep inside, that they should really care for the society, and that they have shown during the pandemic. So that's something I think we should appreciate. And just one point, moving back to Ashwini, who has asked this question, how to accelerate this. So I take it as a movement. See, Joanna was very right, and I endorse the views that politicians, regulations, policymakers have a larger role to play, because unless we incentivize something, the adoption comes slower. The moment we start giving good subsidies on EVs, people will move from almost difference between petrol and diesel prices have tempted on one hand from considering the diesel vehicle to the petrol vehicle. And at the same time, if some good subsidies come, definitely it will tempt people going for EV. I have little knowledge on environmental issues. Joanna is a better expert on that. So with my little thing, so you can excuse me if I'm wrong at points, but I take it as a movement, because I'm a student of economics, and I believe things are more demand driven. So unless market pressures will evolve seriously, the companies may not like to go with the same pace as they are going as far as the reporting is concerned, because we understand greenwashing again is a big evil in the corporate ecosystem. So if market pressures come, so we should think as to how we can bring in more market pressure. As far as India is concerned, we are a very diverse country, and we are in as far as the metros or urban India is concerned. We are very broad as far as the suburban or rural areas are concerned. So concept of climate change, climate risk, and how to ring fence it, how to mitigate it, how to generate some activism in suburban or rural is slightly more challenging. But if we focus at the first level, by contributing in one way or the other in the urban or metro areas, so that general consciousness enhances, which creates a market pressure, I'm sure it's going to create a different ecosystem where corporates will not just start thinking in terms of reporting, because SEBI says them, or MCA asked them, or environmental ministry asked them to take some certifications. In real terms, the real transformation across the value chain for adapting more sustainable measures, sustainable technology, processes will be on way, which will reduce greenhouse effect, which will bring in more not just sustainable IT, but sustainable fashion, and many more areas. So we can see word more greener. If all round activism comes, then only that can be accelerated. Only the policy thing is not going to help us much, because it's going to stop. Ultimately, it is the question of takers. Like, if I refuse to accept some product, companies will be bound to get me a different product altogether. There are some companies who are proactive, but there are some companies who just wait for some incentives on the part of government systems or public systems, so that they shift their existing systems to a new system. So that's very brief. We can take up this discussion more. I think there are many more questions. We have Miss Praveena. Manoj, can you help us unmuting her? Praveena, can you unmute yourself, please?
Sir, we have another participant, Mr. S.K. Pandey, who's unmuted.
First, let us take Praveena, if she's unmute. Or Praveena or S.K. Pandey, whosoever unmutes first, because...
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, Praveena, please shoot.
It was a great, very, very nice discussion also. And of course, what Anna told, that was great. I feel that, the CSR is one field I've been working on it for last many years. Until unless we have two-pronged strategy, it will not happen, because the companies which are global and who are multinational rather, and they source globally, so they source from a place that from another country and manufacture somewhere else. So where they source, there's a lot of depletion in or there is an impact on climate, and there they don't come to know. And whatever profits they earn, and from that whatever CSR activity they do it anywhere in the world, not in a place where the damage was done. So there has to be a system where wherever the impact has been made, there some kind of either a taxation happens, or they have to mandatorily do some kind of uh, activity which will help in decarbonizing or creating more forest, or whatever way, that it has to be mended somehow towards meeting when we say of net zero. So net zero should be in that particular country only, or geographical area. So that would bring in more consciousness. Second thing I feel is that we must start in schools, how to preserve. That we are not doing. Like right from the primary, must know that he shouldn't waste. We have all grown, learned to waste things. And today, when we are told that we are not going to waste, whereas when I remember when we were kids, our grandmother would never ever throw anything. They will always, reknit the sweaters, do something new all the time with the old things. So that consciousness has to come, and we'll have to work with the next generation also on that. So these are the two thoughts I just wanted to open it for discussion, like how you feel and what are the views of Ms. Anna, so that we would know that in which way we are looking towards in future. Way forward in a way.
Thank you very much, Praveena. Yes, it's in the same line of our discussion. I would say that you're right. Where companies are creating value, they need to have a direct proportionality in terms of the taxes they pay, the cleanup they do. There is these principles that where is it applied? That's the area in which we need to work most. Yes, it's and you have this resource curse that's very like that's a bit critical in Africa, I would say. I know the topic because we've had some projects there previously, so I understood the cultures as well. Look, they have the wealthiest continent, and they are not having the wealthiest economies. So yes, that's true with the impact and the taxation and the aspect of schools. We've started, I believe that at the EU level there is a common policy to introduce sustainability in schools. I know for sure that in Romania there was a project that they've started to introduce, and I believe this is something that they will be doing at a larger level. Yes, so the Ministry of Education in India does have an essential role to play. What I will only say is that it's a bit tardive or like a bit late for us to only focus to focus on education of children, because they will not be the ones who will deal with this decade that's coming. It's us that we have to do it. We cannot leave this heritage to them to solve. So I'm afraid that if we focus, let's not dilute our efforts. Let's focus on doing something right now while we still can. So I would argue that the education element, it's absolutely essential. We do this climate fresque also in schools through our NGO partnerships in Romania. In India, we have started to do this. And we have we have students from New Delhi University who are facilitating these climate fresques for our leadership. And it's working amazingly well. But they will bear the brunt of our destruction. They cannot, they're still learning. So sure, they are also consumers, and they will know how to consume now with the little money they have as students, obviously. But I think that it's we should focus on what we can do at our level today. That's the message I'd like to share. Sorry, I was too long.
Would you like to comment before we close? Sir, please unmute yourself. Manoj, please help him. Manoj?
Sir, it seems like he's not there. So
No, he's there. He's there. I can see him. Like he's raising hand. You can unmute him, please.
I've given the access, sir.
Mr. Pandey, can you unmute yourself, because we can hear you only if you unmute you. Mr. S.K. Pandey?
Who knows sign language? I tried to learn it, but I was not. You know, there are so many languages in
he's
sign
finding
language.
some challenge in unmuting himself. Can you unmute him from your side, Manoj? Because I can see him speaking.
Sir, we have given the access. We can give the access only.
I can see
He can
he's
type
locked.
in his question.
Sir,
He's still his mic is locked, I can see.
Sir, I think we can move on. We'll take his question through email and then we'll pass
Sir,
it on to the speaker.
can you place your question on chat, Mr. Pandey, so that I can read it for the interest? Yeah, just place it on the chat. Yeah, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for you. Friends, just bear with him. This is his third chance. I mean, I don't want to lose him.
Leaving no one behind. That's that's exactly a CSR concept.
Yeah, we should try to be inclusive as much as possible. Of course, we cannot accommodate. Many times I say sorry to. We see all the time a lot of enthusiasm in questions. Mr. Pandey, your question, please. Make it as brief as possible.
Tweet it.
Yeah.
It was an interesting exercise to be short and concise, is to try to fit in a Twitter line.
Sir, have you placed the question, Pandey sir?
Sir, he has placed, question is there. I'm reading the question.
Yeah, please read, Manoj, please.
So the question is, don't you think there is a gray line between CSR and the government responsibility?
gray line between, Joanna, would you like to respond?
There is nothing that we do in this world without interdependency. From birth to only we die alone, but we are not alone. I mean, our mothers. So the interdependency aspect, yes, I think that we need to advance whatever actions we have, we advance with our governmental stakeholders, with the authorities. We need guidance, support, and they also can benefit from the innovation in our businesses and how to guide that innovation to be healthy and inclusive. So yeah, it is a gray line, but it's everybody should adapt it based on where their power is or where their power resides, or what do I do in this society. But based on that, I apply the ESG filter so that I take a holistic perspective of my contribution to this world. And yes, we can have the gray in terms of, now he cannot talk, so I in terms of like not knowing who does what. Let's avoid the creep of inaction, because, and this is what we feel like with data in ESG. There is so much data that we have to look at, that the bank needs to look at, and there are so many places from where we can take it. And there is actually some of this data does not even exist yet. For example, for micro, small and medium-sized enterprises, they are not required to report on any of the ESG topics. So how would you know? So, but the fact that if it doesn't exist, it doesn't mean like I don't do anything about it. I engage with the authorities to see how we can stimulate them to report in some case, or engage with them directly. So the gray area, let it be a place for creativity in terms of how we collaborate and to give it a better color.
Just would like to add in response to what Mr. Pandey has asked. There are many, reasons. I'll not get into it. Probably it will consume more time. Just one point I would like to mention: public systems and government has its own challenge, and specifically when we consider India having 140, 150 crores of people and so many developmental changes, government has its leg room based on the exchequer they have. And India, again, you understand the data, and I need not to reiterate, in terms of the numbers who pay taxes, direct taxes, indirect taxes. So definitely there has to have a discussion and consideration point for considering companies making profits and parting with some of the responsibilities of social development, especially when we want to accelerate the process inclusivity, development, society. So I think that also, as one of the points, there were many more, as I said, I'll not reiterate, which went into the discussion when India emerged as first ever country to have, CSR regulations. So I understand your plight. It's not you. There are hundreds or thousands of people who subscribe to your views. So you should be happy your views are being subscribed by a large number of people, that there is a gray line between government responsibility and social responsibility of companies. But yes, there are many more justification points to it as well. So thank you, Mr. Pandey, for your question.
Am I audible now? I think I have been unmuted now. Am I audible now, Dr. Neeraj?
Yeah, you are audible, sir, but we are running out of time. I hope we have answered your question. Thank you so much. I can see many more hands raised, but it's difficult for us to accommodate. Joanna has some other commitment, and we have to close this event today. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. H3N2 is out, so stay away from the flu. Delhi is in the grip that was there in the newspaper, and I was also down for more than a month. With all your wishes have bounced back. So thank you. Have a great evening. It's Friday. I'm sure there must be some Friday blue plans. So go ahead, take care. Have